Coverage you can count on. KOMU 8 News Today starts now.
Good morning, Mid-Missouri. Thanks for waking up with us here on KOMU 8 News Today. It's 8:30 on Saturday, November 20th, 2021. I'm Avery Everett.
And I'm Joseph Meyer.
It's the last home game for the Missouri Tigers today. Kickoff is at 3 p.m. and we can also expect a kick up in some of those temperatures, right, Joseph?
Yeah, they are already starting to warm up this morning, and they're just going to continue to warm up here today. We're going up into the 50s to near 60 degrees. Details on that coming up in my first alert forecast.
Overnight, demonstrators across the country protested the not guilty verdict in the trial of Kyle Rittenhouse. Most of those protests were also peaceful. In Kenosha, Wisconsin, protesters rallied outside the courthouse where the verdict was announced yesterday. Rittenhouse was on trial for fatally shooting 2 men and injuring another during civil rights protests in the city last year. Protests also broke out in New York City and California as well. Yesterday, President Joe Biden acknowledged the mixed feelings about the verdict. He asked Americans to remain peaceful in their protests. Back here in mid-Missouri, a shooting last week in downtown Columbia is leaving the community asking questions about where we move from here. CPD Chief Jeff Jones said last Sunday that this is no longer a policing issue, it's a community issue. At one point last night, KOMU 8 reporters witnessed around 50 people gathered in the alley where Quillen Jacobs was shot and killed by police. KOMU 8 spoke with his cousin that says he believes the violence in Columbia will only continue to get worse if something isn't done to stop it. One employee at a nearby business says he wants the community to overcome this violence.
We need to get to the roots of that problem, which have a lot to do with economic inequality, racism, classism, and in general, a violent culture.
Vibes Lounge was not open for business this weekend, but according to the Facebook page of the owner, they will have a mental health professional on site from 4 to 6 p.m. today. The owner says it will help to unpack some of the trauma the community has recently experienced. The CDC has approved Moderna and Pfizer's COVID-19 boosters for all adults. The FDA cleared the move Friday morning. I'll show you the impact of changes like this for both hospitals and health departments. Nurse Molly Shoup is taking on the pandemic one day at a time. Recent days have been a little easier.
Patient morale overall, with the restrictions lifted, I would say has tremendously helped.
MU Healthcare relaxed its visitor restrictions this month, and that's not the only change to come for COVID-19 guidelines. On Friday, the FDA approved booster shots for all adults, and the CDC followed suit. It's a change the Cole County Department Director Christy Campbell says she's ready for.
But I think everyone has learned so much over the last, 6 to 8 months about the vaccine and how to streamline the processes that we're all pretty good at adapting, and we'll just increase staff if we need to based on the demand.
Headed into the winter months and holiday season that could bring about increased cases, Shoup says changes in the pandemic create changes in morale.
For me, I almost feel like resilient. There's nothing that us nurses can't overcome here. So I think maybe that's kind of how I keep my morale up as a nurse. Just knowing that I've already been through part of the hardest part of my career, I would say, at this point. So just keep trucking along.
And ahead of this holiday season, she says she's riding high. MU Healthcare and the CDC released recommendations to stay safe this holiday season. Those are all on our website, komu.com. The Columbia City Council is expected to vote December 6th on whether to approve a new development in southeast Columbia. It's called The Kitchen, and it's at the corner of Discovery Parkway and Endeavor Avenue. Yesterday, Planning and Zoning approved the plans, which included numerous amenities on nearly 11 acres of land. The 7 lots include plans for apartments, retail and office space, and indoor and outdoor sports facilities. It's now okay for MU employees to keep a gun in their car on campus out of public sight. The UM Board of Curators approved the motion Thursday. That decision was made to comply with state law. A 2019 court ruling says the Second Amendment statute for state employees also applies to public university employees. It will also apply to student employees at the university. The decision has caused mixed emotions among some Mizzou students.
Having them all around me and now knowing that they could be possibly anywhere makes me really upset.
I'm very unbiased towards it. I believe that if they want to keep them in their car, they can, and if they're allowed to, they should be able to.
MU Chancellor Moon Choi says they will be monitoring the situation. MU students will be paying 6% more for room and board at residence halls beginning next school year. The Board of Curators approved the motion also on Thursday. The increases will generate $3 million in new revenue. The money will go towards maintenance projects for campus housing. The decision will affect the student body very differently.
I had to save up for months and months on end just to pay for my room and board, and I just barely paid for it.
In my case, I think a little increase, if it means fixing it and making it more efficient for the students, would be okay.
The increases will amount to about $600 per academic year. In its 24 years, the Almeda Creighton Everybody Eats Thanksgiving event in Columbia has been put on by different organizers. This year is its first with Powerhouse Community Development Corporation. The event originated on Creighton's porch, but has evolved significantly since. After Creighton died in 2013, the torch was passed to community advocate Kentrell Minton. The organization then took over after Minton died last year.
And I appreciate that Powerhouse has taken the helm, because I know that Columbia, there would be a void if we didn't do it this year, because there's a lot of people that are still hurting.
The group collected food donations from the beginning of November until Friday. Food boxes will be distributed today from 10 to 2 p.m. The organization will hold the Thanksgiving hot meal next Thursday. Macon County deputies are still searching for a silver SUV wanted for property damage. Deputies responded to reports of property damage behind Atlanta C3 School on Friday. The baseball field behind the school had deep tire marks across the outfield. Anyone with information on the vehicle or the incident is asked to contact the Macon County Sheriff's Office. 3 teens were charged with burglary, among other charges. Matthew Myers, Braden Holzhauser Crow, and Dylan Smith face multiple charges. They allegedly vandalized and burglarized the Oakley Chapel African Methodist Episcopal Church and 2 other locations. The church was founded by black residents in 1878 and has been unused for several decades. The teens will appear in court on December 20th. You're taking a live look over the Lake of the Ozarks. Your time is 8:38.
KOMU 8 First Alert Weather.
You're taking a look over the Missouri River at Rocheport there. It's a nice day to get outside today. A little bit on the chillier side this morning, but also notice not a cloud to be seen out there. It's clear outside this morning. We had a couple of clouds earlier. A little bit from Thursday into the weekend with highs in the 40s and lows near freezing.
President Joe Biden turned 79 years old today. His physician says the president is back and fit for duty after his first physical since taking office. Biden's physician is Dr. Kevin O'Connor. He's been his physician for 13 years. Biden went under anesthesia for a colonoscopy yesterday. During that time, power was transferred to Vice President Kamala Harris. It marked the first time a woman was acting president. Secretary of State Anthony Blinken is in Senegal today. This is the last stop on his week-long trip through Africa. Blinken is promoting American-built infrastructure and sustainable development. He is also supporting women's empowerment and other human rights initiatives. Blinken hopes to help boost the role of women in Africa economies. His trip also included stops in Kenya and Nigeria. Another cabinet secretary is also on an overseas trip today. Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin is in Bahrain at the annual Manama Dialogue. Austin said the U.S. will work to prevent Iran from obtaining a nuclear weapon. The Biden administration is looking to restore parts of the nuclear deal with Iran reached under President Obama. Austin's trip also hopes to reassure U.S. allies in the Middle East after the withdrawal from Afghanistan earlier this year. Many Americans are trying to decide whether to get their booster shot and which one is the best to get. Investigative reporter Jody Flesher spoke with a leading vaccine researcher who answers those key questions and just how effective the boosters are.
The peak antibody kicks in about 2 weeks.
Dr. Kirsten Leik led a nationwide vaccine study on booster doses for the University of Maryland School of Medicine. It started in June at 10 locations across the U.S. and tracked more than 700 participants.
You could get Moderna, and then get a Pfizer. You could get Pfizer, and then a Moderna. You can mix it up. That's the beauty of this.
Her study was designed to test whether it was safe and effective to get a different booster than your original vaccine. She found it is, and says each combination is fine because they all produced enough of a boosted immune response.
Higher doesn't mean better in terms of antibodies. There's a threshold. So if you get over that threshold of antibody, doesn't matter how much higher you are, you're no better protected than someone who might have a little lower antibody.
The FDA used her research in its decision making and does recommend anyone who got a Johnson & Johnson shot more than 2 months ago to go get a booster now. The Pfizer or Moderna each give an added boost over a second J&J shot.
In my opinion, it was always a 2-dose vaccine. It wasn't a 1-dose vaccine. The one and done was a good niche for them, and that worked well for a lot of people.
She says of the 700 plus people in her study, the one breakthrough case happened pretty close to when the person had gotten their booster, so it might not have taken full effect yet. Her study is one of the few tracking breakthroughs after boosters, so she's watching that closely.
If you do get a breakthrough, usually it's incredibly mild. In fact, you may not even be aware. It may be completely asymptomatic.
The CDC says more than 26 million Americans have already gotten a booster. With plenty of vaccine supply, the scheduling process is wide open. But Dr. Light cautions not to abuse it. Healthy people don't need more than one booster now.
I would encourage people not to do that because we haven't studied the safety of additional doses, and we just don't know.
But she says that could be on the horizon. Her booster study will determine if another shot is needed next year when these boosters start to wane. She'll also add new participants if necessary and new types of boosters as vaccine makers develop new ones to target specific variants.
We're doing it as there are new questions that are important for public health.
So we had to ask, which did she get? Her first two were Pfizer, and then she got a half dose of Moderna as her booster. She said she mixed it up just because her research helped get that approved. Jody Fleischer, NBC News.
That study initially included only the full dose of Moderna booster, but Dr. Like says that half dose is now also a part of her research. She says the FDA opted to approve that one because it gives a very good immune response with fewer side effects. Thousands of protesters gathered in Vienna, Austria today to march against the country's COVID-19 lockdown. The lockdown is a response to a recent surge in cases that could overwhelm intensive care units. It takes effect on Monday and only applies to unvaccinated people. About 65% of Austria's population is fully vaccinated against the virus at this time. That's one of the lowest rates in Western Europe. Beginning February 1st, Austria will mandate the COVID-19 vaccine. 3 people are recovering this morning after being shot yesterday in the parking lot of a Colorado high school. 2 of the victims were taken to a hospital. The 3rd victim got themselves to a hospital. Hinckley High School was on lockdown after the shooting, and all after-school activities were canceled. This is the 2nd shooting this week outside in Aurora High School. 6 students were injured in a shooting on Monday at a park near Aurora Central High School. Investigators say a Penn State student was killed after falling down an apartment trash chute. State College police say 19-year-old Justine Gross fell down the chute 10 days ago. Police later found her body 2 days after she fell at a recycling garbage collection center. Investigators say the teen's death appears accidental, but the coroner's office is still waiting on a toxicology report to rule an exact cause of death. A driver is now in custody after a 2-hour-long pursuit across 2 counties in Los Angeles yesterday. Officers tried to stop the car because it had been reported stolen around 1 p.m. The driver refused to stop. Several times police attempted to use stop sticks, but were unable to slow that driver down. Police were finally able to stop the car with pit maneuvers. You're taking a live look over the Columbia Regional Airport. It's 8:50 on this Saturday morning. Welcome back to KOMU 8 News Today. It's 8:54. New data from the EPA shows carbon dioxide emissions from vehicles hit a record low in the model year 2020. Emissions are down 24% since the model year 2004, as fuel economy continues to increase. But electric vehicles and hybrids still make up a small share of all vehicles built. Those types account for only 7% of 2020 production. President Joe Biden hopes they will account for half of production by 2030. The Canadian government is relaxing restrictions for citizens making short trips out of the country. Starting November 30th, fully vaccinated Canadians will no longer need a negative COVID-19 test before re-entering the country. This move should make it cheaper and easier for Canadians to travel. The required test can cost around $300. With the busy holiday travel season right around the corner, there's concern that President Joe Biden's vaccine mandate for all federal workers could lead to a shortage of FAA and TSA workers because some will refuse the vaccine or be fired. Congressional leaders are now sending letters to the FAA and TSA asking for assurances that there won't be disruptions. Adam Test takes a deeper look at the issue.
September 9th, President Biden with these remarks about a vaccine mandate for federal employees.
If you want to work with the federal government and do business with us, get vaccinated. This is not about freedom or personal choice. It's about protecting yourself and those around you.
But as a November 22nd federal deadline to get fully vaccinated draws closer, NBC News has obtained several congressional letters sent to the Federal Aviation Administration and the Transportation Security Administration, warning about very real cumulative and disruptive impacts this mandate could have during the upcoming busy holiday travel season. Lawmakers, led by Republican Sam Graves of Missouri, want assurances that there won't be a mass exodus or firings of key transportation employees.
Overall at DCA, we're ready, and we're ready for the holidays, so we're very excited about it.
I asked TSA Federal Security Director Scott Johnson about staffing at our local airports, Reagan National and Dulles International, for the holidays. He says even if many were let go, many more continue to apply for jobs.
We're staffed very nicely. Luckily, the Washington, D.C. area has, when we put out advertisement for jobs, an awful lot of people show up for the jobs. Some airports out there are having a hard time hiring, and I can't get into each individual airport. I do know that some of them are having a problem with it.
Now, TSA sources tell us that an announcement is expected soon, pointing to increased vaccinations, and even if an employee did refuse the vaccine, they could still appeal the mandate, and that's a process that would take weeks, meaning they could still work through the Thanksgiving and Christmas periods while not being vaccinated. For passengers, meantime, they're just hoping for a smooth takeoff to holiday travel. Adam Tuss, NBC News, Washington.
TSA officials say they will respond directly to the U.S. Committee on Transportation and Infrastructure about this staffing issue. And that's just one concern headed into the holiday season when it comes to traveling. What about weather-related issues for this upcoming week?
So we were kind of tracking a system that was supposed to move into like the northeastern United States. It was this big traveling system. However, though, it's not really been manifesting as significant as we expected, which is a very good thing.
That's good news.
It means a lot quieter weather for us. That system actually going to make its way into central Missouri overnight tonight. Not going to bring us a lot except for a sprinkle and then some temperature drops out there, but really going to be quiet over the next couple of days across the country. Are ahead for us for our Thanksgiving week. I'll have full details on that coming up in my first alert forecast, and that's a look over Columbia.
Welcome back to KOMU 8 News Today. It's 9:02 on this Saturday morning. Joseph, it's cold out there right now, but it's going to warm up today. Those 40-degree temperatures won't stay for too long.
They're already going away. Watching it live here, we are just watching those temperatures just continuing to tick up today.
That's what I like to hear. It's cold out there.
Yeah, and really, that's just been the trend over the last couple of days. Are just these temperatures that are continuing to warm up. Then we'll crash. Then we'll go up. Forecast coming up in a few minutes.
Overnight, demonstrators across the country protested the not guilty verdict in the trial of Kyle Rittenhouse. Most of those protests were also peaceful. In Kenosha, Wisconsin, protesters rallied outside the courthouse where the verdict was announced yesterday. Rittenhouse was on trial for fatally shooting 2 men and injuring another during a civil rights protest in the city last year. Protests also broke out in New York City and California as well. Yesterday, President Joe Biden acknowledged the mixed feelings around the verdict. He asked Americans to remain peaceful in those protests. Back in mid-Missouri, a shooting last week in downtown Columbia is leaving the community asking questions about where we move from here. CPD Chief Jeff Jones said last Sunday that this is no longer a policing issue, it's a community issue. At one point last night, KOMU 8 reporters witnessed around 50 people gathered in the alley where Quillen Jacobs was shot and killed by police. KOMU 8 spoke with his cousin that says he believes the violence in Columbia will only continue to get worse if something isn't done to stop it. One employee at a nearby business says he wants the community to overcome this violence.
We need to get to the roots of that problem, which have a lot to do with economic inequality, racism, classism, and in general, a violent culture.
Vibes Lounge was not open for business this weekend, but according to the owner's Facebook page, they will have a mental health professional on site from 4 to 6 p.m. today. The owner says it will help to unpack some of the trauma the community has experienced recently. Investigators are still looking into the cause of a fire at the Silver Dollar City Amusement Park in Branson. The fire shut down the park on Thursday. 3 buildings were damaged. Officials from the park say no major injuries were reported, but several people suffered minor injuries before being evacuated. The park reopened on Friday. The CDC approved Moderna and Pfizer's COVID-19 boosters for all adults. The FDA approved the move Friday morning. The Cole County Health Department Director Christy Campbell says it could take some time for shots to actually be distributed here in mid-Missouri. This comes just about a week out from Thanksgiving. Campbell says the department is ready to handle the change since they've been doing a lot of that recently.
But I think everyone has learned so much over the last, 6 to 8 months about the vaccine and how to streamline the processes that we're all pretty good at adapting, and we'll just increase staff if we need to based on the demand.
The CDC and MU Healthcare have recommendations for how to stay safe this holiday season. Those are all on our website, komu.com. A Columbia community Thanksgiving tradition is in its 24th year. The Almeda Creighton Everybody Eats event has been passed on to a community organization this year. KOMU 8's Gabrielle Cohn spoke to its leaders about preparation and plans for this season.
When I knew that they weren't going to be able to do it this year, I said, this has to happen.
An event which began on Almeda Creighton's front porch.
This is such a stellar part of this community.
The torch was passed when Creighton died in 2013.
You're talking almost a quarter of a century this has happened in this city. And so many people count on it.
Soon after, community advocate Cantrell Minton took over until he died last year.
A lot of us were still grieving, but we wanted to make sure that the community was fed.
Powerhouse Community Development Corporation has been working since the beginning of November to honor Creighton and Minton and keep the tradition alive.
And I appreciate that Powerhouse has taken the helm, because I know that Columbia, there would be a void if we didn't do it this year, because there's a lot of people that are still hurting.
They're both honored and humbled to be able to continue this legacy.
So many people have called in and responded, just glad to see that this tradition is going to continue. So I think it comes with great responsibility.
The group has been collecting donated food since November 1st. They will be distributing it to an expected 500 to 700 people tomorrow morning. Gabrielle Cohn, KOMU 8 News.
Today's distribution happens from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. The organization says they still need volunteers. If you want to help, you can sign up on our website, komu.com, or just show up to the distribution at Parkade Plaza. You're taking a live look over the Missouri River near Rocheport. Your time is 6:08.
KOMU 8 First Alert Weather.
And you're taking a look over the Lake of the Ozarks. Looks like maybe a controlled burn going on the other side over there. We are a little bit dry out there today. We haven't had a lot of rainfall over the last several days, or really kind of over the last several weeks. A little bit from Friday into Saturday with temperatures only in the 40s.
Now from the Ford Sports Desk, KOMU 8 Sports.
Yesterday, the University of Missouri broke ground on the new stadium. That's all for sports.
Coming up, a university decision that didn't come in unanimous. How the federal vaccine mandate will affect the thousands employed with MU. But first, you're taking a live look over the Columbia Regional Airport. It's 9:19. Welcome back to KOMU 8 News Today. It's 6:22. So Joseph, something to keep an eye on for the week ahead with Thanksgiving is travel and the weather expectations. Yeah. Should be okay headed into Thanksgiving, but after.
Yeah. After we do start to see a storm system that begins to materialize. Now, a lot of questions about that storm system here. Don't want to fall into the trap that a lot of us fell into over the last couple of days.
Right.
Talking about this big storm system that was supposed to materialize over the Northeast, which is not really materializing over the Northeast as expected. Which is really good news if you are traveling out there, because it is just going to be quiet here. Really quiet. Coming up.
The System Board of Curators approved a vaccine mandate for employees on Thursday. System President Moon Choi estimates this will affect thousands of university workers. But the decision was not unanimous. As KOMU 8's Alex Fulton says, he spoke with community members of the MU community about what this decision all means.
We have 7 votes in favor, 1 opposed, and 1 abstention.
Okay, the motion passes.
A decision that affects 12,500 faculty and staff across 4 System campuses. But not all of the curators supported the decision. Curator Todd Graves
Stand.
And Curator Jeffrey Lehman
No.
both in disagreement.
I think it's a gross overreach.
of the authority of the Office of the President. And I'm not going to help him with it, but I also am not going to hurt the university.
MU faculty and staff members are reacting.
We found a way to go forward.
I was relieved.
Over at MU Healthcare, 99% of all employees complied with the COVID vaccine requirement. Just 4 refused to get vaccinated or file an exemption out of thousands of workers.
4 out of almost, 7,000 employees is a very, very small number.
The new requirement across campus is helping MU faculty and staff too.
People that I know in the College of Engineering who get federal grants, that funding isn't at risk.
The campus mandate comes at a time when government officials are challenging the federal order.
There's a federal mandate that says they have to comply, and the state says they're not supposed to comply.
And both think the decision is coming at just the right time.
It's really a national issue. So the University of Missouri is a small part of the puzzle.
All university employees will be required to be fully vaccinated by January 4th. That's unless they report a religious or medical exemption. You're taking a live look over downtown Columbia. Your time is 9:25.
And let's get a final check of your temperatures out there. We're already starting to see a couple of 50s on the map here, right around 9:26. Moberly, Camdenton, you're already up to 50 degrees. The rest of us are in the middle to upper 40s. Fulton, Mexico, Parrish, you're at 40. For those highs, back down into the 40s for your Thanksgiving.
It's almost the end of our show, but for President Joe Biden, it's peanut butter jelly time, and I'll explain that. Biden pardoned 2 turkeys yesterday at the White House named, you guessed it, peanut butter and jelly. They both weigh about 40 pounds and were raised in Jasper, Indiana. After their clemency, the perfect pair will go to the Animal Sciences Research and Education Farm at Purdue University. I know it's 45 here, but some of those Thanksgiving traditions that are outdoors, it always feels so, do you watch? Do you see them all freezing when they're holding the floats? Or do you, enjoy, your warm at home at the fireplace?
Yeah, Thanksgiving is one of those holidays where I've definitely remember some warmer Thanksgivings before, and then I remember some really, really cold Thanksgivings.
With some snow, yeah.
Yeah, we had a Thanksgiving a couple of weekends ago, not a couple weekends, a couple of years ago, that we were outside. We ate it outside.
We'll look at all of the temperatures based on your forecast for the week. I mean, the 60s on Wednesdays to 40s and then for the rest of the week. That's all the time we have. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Have a nice day.